The Indie Writers Club podcast is sponsored by Pro Writing Aid. Pro Writing Aid has been my go-to tool for revising and refining my writing since my first book. Built by writers for writers, it's more than just a grammar and spell checker. Pro Writing Aid helps you enhance your story's pacing, plot, characters, settings, and more. It can even provide on-demand developmental feedback on your entire manuscript with its new manuscript analysis and virtual beta reader tools. Get ahead of the competition by heading to prowritingaid.com, sign up for free or use the code IWC15 for a 15% discount off annual subscriptions.
It's the Indie Writers Club with Cara Clare and James Blatch. A place to relax, chat, learn and vent about life as an independent author. Get episode alerts and links at indiewritersclub.com. Now, here's Cara and James.
Welcome to the Indie Writers Club. I am Cara Clare.
And I'm James Blatch. Hello.
Hello, James Blatch. You were just telling me that you're very sweaty.
Yeah, I'm very sweaty. So I'm doing a half marathon training plan to get me ready for doing a marathon training plan next year. And so I sort of feel I've got to stick to it. You've got to go out even when you don't feel like it. Every morning, my watch, which measures your sort of energy levels, every morning has been telling me my body battery is like 1 out of 100. And then it says, oh, and your run today is 40 minutes. I'm thinking, well, no wonder I've got no energy. What's wrong with you, watch? Why do you keep doing this to me? But anyway,
I mean, surely if it says that you've got no energy, that sort of means like sit down, have a rest, don't go for the run.
So I would have thought. I gave myself a day off yesterday. I postponed yesterday's run. But did it today. It was quite warm and muggy. It's nice to be warm, but not when you're running.
Yeah,
I agree. Can you hear my dog?
I can hear your dog. Which dog is it, Dora or Enzo?
It's Enzo. He's just, I don't know what it is about him. It's also,
it will probably be filtered out of the podcast recording, but I can hear Enzo.
He's a gorgeous golden retriever, but he is nuts and immature.
You should get yourself a greyhound. I forget that mine's here. I genuinely forget that he exists sometimes because he's just so quiet.
Very sweet dog is Knight. I said hello to him last week and then when we met up.
He is. And I think because I haven't been able to get out and take him places, my sister's taking him to a secure dog field for me and taking him for a run.
Oh, yes.
But he's just gone into total kennel mode. He's just like sleeps all day, 10 minutes zoom me around a field, and then he's like, I'm done. She took him to the field the other day and had hired it for an hour. He did literally 3 laps at full speed, then laid down and went to sleep.
In the field? Well, that is greyhounds for you, though, isn't it? Isn't that what they do?
Yeah, it is. They're called the world's fastest couch potatoes because they really just want a zoomy and then lots of sleep. So it's working well for me.
Doesn't say that to me. Now that you've done your run, curl up on the sofa for the afternoon. I could watch the Open in the afternoon. Okay, right.
You could.
We are talking about the dark side of AI. You know, we are genuinely quite positive about AI. I really enjoy the new technology, and I also see it for what it is, which is the next tranche of change and technology, and that we need to adjust and embrace to it. I have no truck with the out devil, because everyone said that about electricity, everyone said that about Photoshop, everyone said that about everything that comes along, and eventually it gets adopted and used by everyone. So you may as well be there at the beginning. All you're doing is doing yourself out of some advantage by not being an early adopter. So we're going to be using it. We talked about the book and manuscript analysis tool in Pro Writing, which I'm using at the moment. We've talked about cover design and all the rest of it. But there's a dark side, of course there is. And I suppose it's that old thing that I remember. This is going to sound like a weird reference, but I remember when DVD came along and somebody in the industry at that point said, pornography drives technology in audiovisual. The pornography industry has massive amounts of content easily created, and it wants to distribute it. So DVD, VHS, live streaming, all the protocols that we all end up using are driven by this rather dark industry first, because it's necessity, isn't it? Mother is the invention of necessity. Whatever. What's that expression? Necessity is the mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of invention.
I was just smiling and nodding.
and the same thing really with AI. You know, we sit around all innocently, hopefully behaving well and doing things properly, but there's people out there, the moment new technology comes along, they adopt and adapt it quicker than we do for nefarious reasons.
Yep.
and it's accelerated some of the things that have been around in our industry, preying on authors for a long time, certainly since the beginning of self-publishing, have just accelerated recently.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, so there's obviously an ethical debate around AI, which we do try to bring up, and I think we're quite good on this show about having balanced discussions. But this is kind of different than that. it is along the lines of scammers using it for, like you said, nefarious reasons. And I think we'd sort of been becoming aware of it, but you got an email which kind of really highlighted the potential. And
Yes.
I think it's really important because as well, there's a lot of new authors who listen to this show. There's a lot of us who've been around for a long time, but these are the things that we sort of forget about, and we forget how easy it is to fall into these traps when you're first starting out. And there's enough out there already, and it kind of feels like brilliant. Now there's another thing that people are going to have to try and be really, really aware about. So
Yeah.
tell us about this email that you got.
Yeah, so bear in mind how much I know about the industry and look, with the red flags. I was towards the end of this email before I clocked that it was AI. So basically, it's from a woman from a marketing company who had read my book to the point of saying, the character development of Rob was very interesting. Particularly, you did something unusual, which is to kill, your main character halfway through and hand that over. But she said, I loved it, and I particularly love the way that in the end, Rob goes off and it's very specific stuff. However, marketing is a different matter, but I think your book is going to be a really good fit for us. We have a very, very bespoke system based on specific books that we like. We think your book is a good fit. And do you want to talk to us about that? And then I got to the end of it and realized they've just put my manuscript into AI and asked it to write this formatted email they're going to send to every author they've got an email address for. That's going to make it sound like they've read the book, that they love the book, that they specifically reference a few moments in the manuscript, which is flattering. Somebody writes to you,
Yeah.
they're in the middle of your book putting stuff out, but it was just AI. And it was just, that moment I thought, okay, so I'm savvy enough, hopefully savvy enough to see things like that, but it took me a while. People who aren't listening to this podcast, who had just sort of published their first few books, I think can fall for this.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the giveaway so far has always been you get a message on Instagram or you get an email, and it's usually bad spelling and grammar. They say really kind of quite vague things about, we really like your author platform, or we really like what you're doing. And I've had things that are like, we can see that you're a successful author on TikTok, and that you can kind of guess from the way that it's phrased, from the fact that it's very generic. And people still get sucked in by those because it feels flattering. And also, I think people just aren't aware that that's something that people would do. You sort of think, but why would people be reaching out in that way? But now that they can be so much more specific and clever and make it really sound like they know you as a person, know your book, know intricate details of your book, it's going to be so much easier to get scammed. And actually, AI is also very, very good at crafting persuasive arguments and phrasing things in a very nice way. So even in terms of if we think further down the line to persuading someone to part with their money, you can imagine that AI is going to do a really flipping good job if you ask it to. If you said to ChatGPT, I want you to think about the psychology of a new writer who's really desperate to get their book out there, and I want you to craft an email that's going to make them think that going with our publishing company and giving us £3,000 to publish their book is going to be a good idea, it would do a really good job.
Yeah. Now, because I haven't asked AI that question, is there any part of ChatGPT or Claude or whatever that says, this doesn't sound ethical, I don't think I'm going to help you with this?
I haven't tried it. I feel like I should have before we did this, but I've read a couple of articles recently where this is like another ethical thing that's coming up, is people, the example that was given was in emotionally abusive relationships where people are asking AI, can you craft a letter to my wife to explain to her why she's done these things wrong, and to kind of emotionally manipulate someone, and it's done it.
Wow.
So currently, right now, I don't think there is anything like a fail-safe within ChatGPT that would go, no.
No, not for that level of subtlety. If you said to it, can you help me create a bomb, it would probably say,
yeah, if you said, can you help
that.
me scam someone, then no. But it's a little bit how you can now get it to discuss sex scenes and write sex scenes for you, whereas Previously, it was an absolute hard no, wouldn't
Yeah.
entertain anything like that. Now, if you tell it, I'm an author and I'm writing a sex scene, would you help me? It does it now, whereas it didn't
Wow.
before.
I probably need that help. I saw something on X this week that Grok has had some limitations taken off it, so it's now more truthful or whatever. Anyway, this doesn't matter, because if you're in the business, and this is a big business, you're going to find an AI that doesn't have those. Even if you build your own, have your own sort of API into the back end of one. So that's not really the issue. So what is the issue? Why is this? What would happen if I contacted this woman? Well, the problem is that they are generally what we call sort of vanity publishers, or they're marketing companies that will package fairly basic marketing for you and charge you well over the odds for them. That's the bottom line, what happens. So instead of going to Readsy, for instance, to get someone to help you with your Facebook ads, or blurb writing, which might cost you a few £100 each time you do it, they will charge you $10,000 or $15,000, and you'll get basically the same service. And there's quite a few of these companies around.
Yeah, and I think, my issue with this has always been, because I used to offer, way back in the day, I used to offer author services for people like making a website or whatever, and I would always break down exactly what it was going to cost, and it's hiring a freelancer to do something. That's very different from a company that makes you think, because what they do is they play on your psychology. They make you think that they're going to put your book into bookstores. They might not ever actually phrase it like that, but they say things and they're clever in the way that they talk to you. And I actually think that sometimes the people who work for these companies don't actually really understand what they're doing. They're new people. They've just been employed at kind of, assistant editor level or whatever. And the people higher up genuinely make them think, well, you're helping these people to get their book out there. But the point is, you are usually paying way, way, way above what you would pay if you hired those freelancers yourself. And quite often they give you a substandard product. Like if you go onto the Ally website, they have a list of companies that they will highlight. But you can also just go to Trustpilot and look at Trustpilot reviews. And I've helped people get their rights back from companies like this before, who've charged £3,500, £4,000 to put a book out there. The cover is awful. They've done no marketing. Their version of marketing is they've put it on their website, which nobody looks at to buy books from because they're an unknown publisher. And maybe they've run they'll tell you they're running a couple of Facebook ads. Well, we all know how that's going to go. That's not going to generate any money. And usually when you talk to people and you explain, okay, so tell me what their motivation is to sell any of your book, because you've just given them £4,000.
Yeah.
So what is their motivation because usually it's the phrasing is usually something along the lines of £4,000. And then once you've earned that back through your book sales or something, you'll start then getting a royalty. I was like, how is that likely to happen? You're never going to, it's not in their interest to try and make you that money back.
No,
Sorry, I get really, really upset about this topic.
But when you're new and you're writing your first book, of course you're full of optimism and hope that your book's going to break out, and you've read all these stories about people going wealthy from self-publishing, and so that it is a fertile market, which is why they exist. The golden rule here is that for a publishing company, money should only flow in one direction.
Yeah.
They should sell
and
your
they
book.
phrase it as things like, I can't remember how they phrase it, partnership contracts, hybrid contracts they sometimes use, which is a sneaky word because we talk about hybrid in the industry. But when we talk about that, we mean that we have some of our formats that we keep our rights for, or some of our books that we keep our rights for, and other books or other formats like audio or print, we might then do a deal with a traditional publisher. But the absolute kind of rule of thumb is money should only ever come one way. Like you should never be giving money to someone who calls themselves a publisher.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, you can go off, like I said, to readsy.com and find somebody to do these services. And you add that all up together, it's not going to come to the same bill, and it's going to be better. But actually, most of this stuff you can do yourself. Formatting is now easier than it's ever been before. Almost every thing you're writing can output something that you can then use as your format. Creating covers has never been easier than it is now, although you do still need a good skill set there, and that's something that. But I think the bar has lowered on. In the past, you would need a really highly skilled cover designer to take fairly bland looking stock images and create all the kind of glowing effects and everything that makes them look like a really good cover that pops. Whereas now you start with that image
Hmm.
because AI
Yeah.
creates a really poppy image that looks great on a cover to start off with. So what you're doing is you're doing some layout stuff and some text, which still requires, by the way, a bit of skill and know-how. But that opens up the market, I think, for cover designers being in the past, before AI, I probably wouldn't have gone with a friend who's an author and does covers on the side, which you can
Yeah.
do, and they're a cheaper way of doing it. But I probably wouldn't have done. I would have paid, $7.50 or something to Stuart Bache. Whereas now, I think actually, if they're good at the tech stuff, I know what the cover's going to look like, and so that it's cheaper than ever, I think, to get that.
Yeah, and
And
you
I
can also, even prior to AI, you can get really good pre-mades now. You can get fantastic pre-made covers. My first cover for the Nova series was a pre-made that I found on Etsy for
just
$100,
explain
and
what
I
a
loved
pre-made
it.
is.
So a pre-made cover is one that a designer has just already done. They might have done it as part of coming up with designs for another author, and it was one that author didn't choose, or they might have just sat around and done some designs based on a particular genre and what they know is popular, and then you pick one that you think fits your genre, your story. So I paid $100 for that pre-made cover, which fitted my story really, really well. And then subsequent ones were all based off of that, and they were all cheaper than having a custom cover done, because they were based on that original pre-made. And even if you're in something like rom-coms, which a lot of the time want illustrated, character art on the front of the cover, you can still get confusing terminology, but they call it a custom pre-made. So you can get a pre-made where it's still way cheaper than getting the whole thing done from scratch, but maybe you pay $150 and you get to say, could you please tweak that person's hair so it's brown and not blonde? And would you mind adding a little bit of something here? So it's really, really possible to do this like super, super cheap now to a good standard. But I think the fact it's overwhelming is what draws a lot of people to these kind of vanity publishers, because when you're just starting out, it feels like so much, and some people go, but I don't want to do all that. I don't want to try and find a cover designer myself. I just want to get my book out there. But even so, I think you could find someone to project manage the publishing of your book for cheaper than you would if you were paying one of
Yeah,
these publishers to do it as a package for you.
yeah. Now, the next area I think that we have to be wary of is people offering services such as editing and cover design, but not disclosing that they're using AI. Because I think
Hmm.
we need to encourage people to be clear from the beginning. So translation, development editing, copyproof editing, cover design. I think AI has a role to play in all of those. And frankly, if I was a practitioner of any of those, I would start with AI in all of them. I think AI
Hmm.
is a really, really good place to start. So in translation, I can't imagine in the future, very soon, we're going to have human translators starting from scratch on a book. I think they're going to run it through Scribe
Yeah.
Shadow or whatever, and then they're going to work on that copy. So that will be the expensive option, having somebody do that. But
Hmm.
be honest about it. Don't advertise your services on Fiverr.com as a human translator, because people are not choosing not to use Scribe Shadow. They're choosing to use a human translator. And then what you're doing is running it through Scribe Shadow and giving it back to them.
Yeah.
That, I think, is wrong. Cover design, I think people still need the option. There will be people listening to this podcast who are simply uncomfortable with using AI because it takes work away from people, whatever. So just be open and honest if you're a cover designer, what you use and how you use it. I don't think anyone's, you'll give yourself a market actually if you say you do use AI or don't use AI, because some people want to do that. But
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
disclosure, which is the sort of thing Amazon are working towards anyway with this survey you tick when you upload your book. I think disclosure is a big topic for us to get our heads around.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I feel like in a couple of years' time, it won't even be a question. People won't care if you've used AI as part of your process. I think with art, it's probably the biggest deal. And I was saying to you earlier that, so in the romance genre in particular, using AI to produce character art is a really, really big no-no, because there's a whole swathe of artists who have developed a career based on the fact that they're good at drawing characters from people's books. So I do understand it. So the kind of backlash to that has been that there's now people who are using AI, but they're setting up a fake Instagram profile, pretending to be a human or an artist who draws stuff themselves, because they are a human, but they're pretending that this is their art that they've drawn, and they will say not AI.
Right.
And they're approaching authors as well. I had a TikTok message the other day. I'm a new illustrator. I'm just getting into this. I'm a student, so my prices are really low. I'd love it if you'd look at my portfolio. Went to the Instagram page, and there was maybe 10 images, but when you look at them, I was like, they're all very different in style. They didn't have a consistent style among them, so that was quite obvious. But people who are more clever than that, you can get, Midjourney now to replicate a style quite easily. You can also get ChatGPT to replicate a style quite easily. So I think there will be a bunch of people who've cottoned on to the fact that they can just pretend to be a somebody who's drawing this stuff themselves. So I suppose the solution to that is, if you really, really are, you want to make sure that you're hiring somebody who is a human who draws their own artwork, is to see what other authors they've worked with. And a lot of artists now they'll post things in their Instagram stories and stuff where they're actually sketching out, the first image, and they're showing you them creating the different layers and stuff like that. But if they approach you, the general rule of thumb is, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So if they approach you and tell you that they're doing full body character art for £20, that they're likely to be scamming you.
Yeah. And like I say, it's, so I'm not anti people using AI to generate images for your book, but we need to be clear, and people need to be able to make that choice. And this is it's deception to do it any other way. I mean, you're going to get to the point where some artists are probably already doing this. They're sort of be Twitch streaming their creative process so that people can see it's a human. I know Talia, our friend in one of our little author groups who we meet up with, she live streams her writing. And part of that is that people can see she's not a robot, although she is a robot. I don't know if you know
She
that.
has to be, because I don't know how she could possibly write so much.
Wires, just poking out from the back of her.
I think superhuman is a better word than robot.
Although she is a bit steampunky as well, so remember that's a bit mechanical stuff.
She is. She could be hiding robot parts under that hat.
She's a robot. She's like a 19th century robot, but steam driven.
Talia, if you're listening, we love you.
We do love you. I mean, you're getting to that point, aren't you, to prove it? And I don't know when that moment will happen where you say, and I agree with you, in the future it won't matter, it'll just be a given, like translations will be a given that you start with AI, even if you've chosen humans to then do it. And that manuscript analysis tool we talked about last week from PWA, that you as a development editor, a good option would be to run the manuscript through that, look at their notes, read the book yourself, and then interpret those notes, add yours, think what you've got right, and then present a plan to your author. And that's something I would pay for. I'd pay for someone to do all that legwork for me, because that's development work. It's not the writing. It's helping you, interpret what you've been told. And also you need a human and another reader to do what we discussed last week, which is some things you need to ignore and some things you need to change.
And that would be, in theory, cheaper for you. So the development editor is charging less, but they're able to take on more projects because it's taking them less time. And it's the same with the translations. You would, in theory, be paying less for that translation because they've put it through AI first and then they're editing it as a human. But they're able to do more translation work because they're using the AI to help them. So that's kind of the ideal situation, I suppose, isn't it? But I just wanted to circle back quickly to vanity publishers before we say anything else, because this isn't AI related, but it is kind of new tactics related, because I haven't seen this before, but popping up on my TikTok lately, there's been a couple of these well-known companies who are doing TikTok videos which say things like, submissions are open. We're looking for manuscripts that have blah, 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 blah. We're looking for spicy romance. And they're making it look like they are a publisher and that you submit your manuscript with a cover letter the same way that you would, elsewhere. And that they're making it look like a traditional publishing kind of setup. But another thing to be aware of is that in general, you can't query a publisher these days. You query an agent. Usually, if you're interested in being published by HarperCollins or Random House or getting into, Penguin Random House, getting into bookstores and going the traditional route, you need an agent. Most publishers, proper, legit trad publishers, do not let you just cold query them. They might very occasionally have a small submissions window once a year where they might open things up. But even so, usually these days you query an agent, not a publisher.
Yeah. I mean, that is a tactic that vanity publishers have long used. Is their front end makes it look like they're a traditional publisher and that you are blessed by them to have been selected for their top program. Very few people get to pay £15,000 to them to have their book published, but you've been selected for that top tier program. I mean, all of this will be accelerated by AI. It's the reach, isn't it? I mean, it's annoying how I don't know how people have my email address. My email address is out there. I'm a bit of a podcast host and stuff, but still, at some point, this is not done on a one-on-one basis. No one's gone around specifically getting my email address and your TikTok details. There's another part of this industry that just scrapes together all this information and gets hold of email addresses and sells them, which is obviously breaking every possible data protection rule that there is out there as well. And that stuff's always gone on. So we end up, unfortunately, you can try and hide from it, but they will find you at some point, and you'll be the victim of this. It'd be interesting if people post into our Discord about this, what experiences they've had, whether people have had these emails, which I suspect will be commonplace soon, that I've had, telling me how wonderful my book is. I mean,
and I would say as well, don't be afraid to ask other authors, because I see in, some of the Facebook groups, sometimes people do actually pop up and say, I've been contacted by this publishing house. What does everyone think? And every experienced author will be quite happy to tell you honestly what they think of it. I'm sure that other authors would even give a quick glance over a contract or whatever to just say that doesn't look like a normal trad contract to me, because there would be no judgment, because all of us have been almost kind of sucked in at some point. Some of us have been. So there's no judgment or shame involved. If you're not sure, ask someone and people will give you an honest answer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what these communities are for.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's been our dark side of AI discussion. The dark side.
Was it uplifting, depressing? Informative, I hope. Informative.
Informative and empowering. That's what
and I think we just have to, we do. I think we just have to be on guard and kind of second guess everything. Don't, it sounds a little bit skeptical and sad, but don't take things at face value. Like, do your research, and that goes for everything. It goes for, when you're hiring freelancers, when you're, whatever you're doing, do your due diligence and do
as much yourself as possible, I'd say, even if that's sourcing someone to do your cover, but do all of that yourself, because then if you do end up on the end of one of these scams, you'll look at the services they're offering and think, well, I don't need half those services. Whereas if you're not doing anything right at the beginning of your career, that's when this can become tempting. So press one button, and then you'll convince yourself that $7,500 isn't a bad price to pay to have all this work done.
Yeah, and I think there are people who go, well, I don't really care because I don't want this to be a career. I just want my book to be out there. But even then, I would say, but do you really want to throw money down the drain for something that actually at the end of the day probably won't be a very good product? Because I've seen on these TikTok videos and stuff, they're quite clever because they show a couple of covers that look quite nice. But if you look at the rest of the shelves behind them, I'm thinking those covers aren't to market. Those covers aren't very good. And also another problem with when you use these services is that they won't say no to you. So if you as an author go, I've written this romance story and it's a little bit half a memoir, so I thought I'd have me on the front cuddling my dog, they'll go, sounds great, yeah, brilliant. Because they don't care. They're not going to tell you that's a bad idea. So even if you don't want this to be a career, this is something that you've created. You're proud of this, you love it, so you should want it to have the best kind of packaging possible. And I just don't believe that you get that from these kind of places.
Yeah. Good. Be warned.
I think maybe we should stop there because I could literally rant about this
Yes,
all day.
it is.
All
It is
day.
annoying. Well, send in your examples. We'll do another episode at some point about this, and also I think it'd be worth naming and shaming here and there if we
Yeah, if
see
anyone's got
something.
any stories to share, or if they're willing to share, then let us know because I think also sharing this kind of stuff lets other people know that it's not just you. And also, it is if you're in the position where you're sitting there thinking, I think I might have been victim to this. I paid however much and never seen anything much from it. My first piece of advice is just ask for your rights back because most of the time they know they're shady. They know they haven't done you a good deal. So you probably won't get your money back, but you can at least get your rights back to your
Yeah,
books and then repackage them, republish them, do what you want to do with them.
yeah.
And I haven't known anyone who's asked for their rights back and has been told no when it's been one of these
From
kind
one
of,
of these, pay
yeah,
publishers.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have this in online courses as well. We had a very angry email from somebody a few years ago saying they wanted their £5,000 back from us at Learn Self Publishing, and I'm thinking, what? We don't charge £5,000 for anything. What's this? And she had paid £5,000 to people, set themselves up very similar to us, same colours, very similar name, promised to do everything for her, got no service. Then they just stopped responding to emails, and she thought it was us.
Yeah.
And I felt
And
so she
again,
was. I felt so
AI
bad.
is
I
going to
will say,
make everything, AI is going to make everything more believable. AI is better at designing
yes,
websites and it's
yes,
cheaper and it's quicker, so they can make a more believable scam website. So
and
just
they can, and
everything
that
is leveling up.
and going back to the beginning, they personalise everything, so it really does feel like this is a personal email to you, which is easily done. They just put your manuscript through, or your
Hmm.
blurb at least through an AI. But we did, by the way, refund that woman, even though it wasn't us, it wasn't our money. 'Cause I felt so
Oh,
bad for. I know it was a very happy
oh,
moment, but she was devastated and very upset when she realised, and I
mm,
was very angry. But
yeah,
anyway. There you go. Good. Okay. Look, one little nugget is we are potentially going to do a retreat back in Cambridge at Madingley, we think, in the
yep.
autumn. So we're looking at potentially October, is it?
Yeah, I'm talking to them about dates, but we're thinking potentially October because there's Author Nation in November, isn't there? And you're going to be
Yeah.
at that, and we don't want to
And Link
clash
in September,
with
yeah.
that. Yeah, so October would be a good time, and I know there's people who won't be going to either Link or Vegas who are interested in coming to something in the UK. And quite a few of the people who went to the one that we just ran said, "Oh my God, please do another one." So that's what we're looking at doing.
Yeah. And we'll try I think for the October one, because we won't be able to go outside us. We might be beautiful autumn days. There might be horizontal rain, who knows? We'll probably create some more structured sessions inside for that one. So we'll do a session on Facebook ads. We'll do a session on cover. It'll be kind of discussion-led stuff rather than sitting tutorials. But so people know that things are going to happen, as well as having a chance just to relax and write and have a few drinks in the evening. It would be interesting to know whether people would prefer weekdays or weekends. So last time we did do weekend, we started, so it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. But we could do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday if it's more convenient for people.
Yeah,
I don't really know. I mean, for me, probably I prefer the weekends. They're quite busy weeks, but I'm flexible. It's my work,
yeah,
so I'd be
same.
there anyway.
Yeah, a weekend feels easier for me, but I don't mind. It's,
We'll send.
whatever.
I'll send an email out this week. So if you've signed up if you pre-registered for the retreats, then, which I think is indiewritersclub.com/retreats,
Yep.
then you'll get an email this week and I'll ask you a couple of questions and allow us to plan for that. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. And we're
Yep.
using this place again because frankly it's cost effective for everyone. It allows us to
Yeah.
price it at a reasonable price and make it as inclusive as possible. Once you move to the more dedicated conferencey like places, suddenly it's £1,500 for 3
Yeah.
nights, which is crazy.
Yeah,
So
we did investigate some other options, but Madingley was pretty perfect in terms of location. It's easy to get to from the station. It's got a lot of character. It's got that like quintessential British feel for people coming from other places.
definitely murder mystery.
It definitely is,
Character.
yeah.
Fine.
And it allowed us to have that little campus feel. But as soon as you go like corporate hotels, that sort of thing, it just puts it at a price point that we're not really comfortable with. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to keep it as accessible as possible.
Good. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much indeed, Cara Claire. I will.
Thank you, James Blatch.
Catch up with you next week, probably before.
All right. Probably before. Bye.
Bye.
Support the podcast and get exclusive access by joining our Patreon. From just $1 an episode, you'll be invited to our Discord server, where the weekly discussion continues every day. And our 2 top tiers include a monthly live Q&A with James and Cara. Head to indiewritersclub.com/support. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, like and share. We'll see you next Friday.
The Indie Writers Club podcast is sponsored by Pro Writing Aid. Built by writers for writers, Pro Writing Aid doesn't just check spelling and grammar. It helps you enhance your story's pacing, plot, characters, settings, and more. Now it can even provide on-demand developmental feedback on your entire manuscript with its manuscript analysis and virtual beta reader tools. Give your writing a competitive advantage by heading to prowritingaid.com. You can also sign up for free or use the code IWC15 for a 15% discount off annual subscriptions.